Okay, welcome back to part 2 of Machu Picchu. So we left off talking about civilizations. So you are going to draw your own civilization on the plateau. And civilizations are kind of this point when people start living in towns and you will see a culture develop. Civilization has laws, it has a way for people to grow food. It has a system of government usually, such as kings or queens or an election. A civilization, people will usually have their own language or their own religion. So I want to try and draw my own civilization up here on the plateau that I have just drawn. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, civilization. So I want my people to have a way of growing food. So I'm going to draw like a field over here. Okay, put some rows in it so that it looks like people are growing food. Okay, maybe this is where they grow corn. And then one cool thing that Machu Picchu has is things called terraces or terrace farming, which is where now I'm going to put in a stair-like case over here. Okay, and when people grew their food in terraces, they grew it kind of in levels. Usually if you were at a high altitude, you might be growing your food in a terrace. Okay, so this is where they're growing food. And then maybe there's like a pathway or a system of roads, okay, as well that I want to include to show a civilization. And then I want them to have a body of water as well so that there's some constant water supply. So I'm going to put that there. And now I'm going to start thinking about the houses. So in a civilization, people would be living in homes in the town together. So I can start to draw some homes in here. Okay, and you can always refer to the PowerPoint too to see how, like close-ups of how I'm drawing these. Maybe I'm going to build like a temple-looking structure because I'm thinking like they have their own religion. So I'm drawing some sort of like church-like structure. Okay, I'm going to draw maybe a little forest up here. Okay, maybe this is where people can go hunting. I'm thinking of all the things I'd want to have in like my town, in my civilization, for it to be healthy and happy. I'm going to have some like domestic animals, like maybe cows and pigs and chickens that people are raising. So that way we don't go hungry. This is my drawing of a llama. There's a lot of llamas in Machu Picchu, or alpacas. So I'm drawing some like a gated area where maybe we would keep these animals. There'd be something for people to eat. And then I may put a few more houses up here. Okay. Like this. And then I'm going to put in another field because I really want to make sure we have enough food. Another farmer's field back there. Okay. So now I can start to color in my civilization. Okay. Or you can paint it in using watercolors, but I like to use markers because it allows me to do more fine detail work. All right, and really get into the tight spaces and start to add color. And then when it comes time to do the mountains and the plateau itself, what you want to create is atmospheric perspective. You want to create a sense of depth going back into your picture. So the mountains that are closest to you in the picture will be the darker value. So I'm going to make a nice dark brown for these mountains here that are closest to me. Okay, and that's important so that the viewer has a sense of perspective when they look at your picture. Okay, and right now I'm mixing kind of blue with my brown here to sort of make it look a little bit more like a cold mountain. All right, and then as I move back in the space, my mountains are going to get lighter. The ones that are furthest away from the viewer are going to be a lighter value. See how this is a lighter brown than the one I used near the front of my picture. I'll paint my mountain in there. All right, now for this part of the plateau, okay, you can choose whether you want to paint it or use oil pastels. I'm going to use oil pastels. But I'm also going to create a range of values. So here I have a light brown and a dark brown. So if you look closely, it's going in a pattern. Light brown, dark brown, light brown, dark brown, light brown, dark brown. Okay? And that's to, again, create a sense of perspective, to make it look like this is sitting up high on a plateau. So I'm going to keep changing the value from light to dark brown every time I come to a new section or a new line. So it was light, now it's dark, light, and I'm going to keep going. And one thing that's fun about oil pastels is you can make them lighter by blending another color on top. So I'm going to make that one even lighter by taking this tan color and going on top of that reddish brown. And I can even do the same thing to my dark brown just to kind of blend it a little bit. And you see how it kind of helps to soften up that color. Okay, so I'm going to keep going with that light brown, dark brown pattern and color in the parts of the plateau. All right, so you're working on that, and then you can also, okay, paint in your clouds a nice, beautiful white. And the oil pastel that you use to draw them, okay, will help to keep their shape as you paint them in. And you can paint in your sky a beautiful blue, or you could do a sunset. Okay, so you can see I'm working on here. Now I'm going to make some blue in my sky, taking my time working my way around the clouds and in between the mountains. Okay, and it's really, really important when you do your mountains that you remember atmospheric perspective. Okay, and you work hard to make the mountains that are closest to you the darkest value. So I'm painting them in right now, like this. Okay, darkest value because they are the closest to me. And then as I go back in the space, this mountain here, directly behind this one, will be a lighter value. So I might mix my color with some white. Okay, or I might use more water to make it more like faded. So I get my brush really wet with water when I paint a mountain that I want to be a lighter color. Okay, so I still have a lot of work to do in terms of coloring and making sure I draw in all the features of my civilization. You know, I'm going to take my markers and take my time and nicely color in all of the features. And then what you guys can start to think about is what you want to name your civilization. What are you going to call it? Okay, and you should be able to point out what the features are that you included in your civilization. So I can say I included a temple, I included a place where we can keep domestic animals for eating or for transport. I included a field for growing food, a source of water. I included a forest, so that way we can like chop down trees and make more homes if we need to. And my civilization is very well protected because it's up very high in the mountains, so it's safe from invaders, you could say. And if you're interested, there's this part of this example. Here you can see these mountains look a little bit different from these ones. And what I did here is I put oil pastel down first. I put down some blue and some like gray, blue and gray oil pastel together. And then I took my pencil and I kind of scratched into the oil pastel. And then I put watercolor on top, and it creates this sort of cool texture on those two front mountains there. So if you're interested, you could try that out. And I'm very excited to see your Machu Picchu inspired ancient civilizations.